and good morning on Monday.
What were you going to say?
August 28th. I almost said Wednesday because I have gotten way ahead of myself here. It's time for the 359 podcast, and it's episode 273, and we've got Alfred Ng, Roger Cheng, and Dara Kerr in the studio today, and we are talking about...
Uber.
Go figure.
Yeah. Uber finally get this new CEO. I still need to practice his name, but we'll get it right. We're also going to be talking about Alfred's story on hackers preying on new students during the back to school season.
School, baby.
Yep. And then lastly, we'll be talking about our latest road trip feature, in which Dara and Rich Nieva, our other intrepid reporter from SF, went out to Angola to go hunting for landmines, essentially.
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool story. We'll talk a little bit more about that. As always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Brian will get to the best, and we'll try to answer them in 3 minutes and 59 seconds.
And here we go in 3, 2...
Welcome to the 359. I'm Roger Cheng.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Go ahead.
And I'm Dara Kerr.
Uber finally has a new CEO. Say hello to Dara Khosrowshahi, formerly the CEO of Expedia. He's a bit of a surprise pick since a lot of the rumors have centered around Jeff Immelt, the former GE CEO, and Meg Whitman, the HP CEO, both of which who basically said, no, we're not interested in this job. Mm-hmm. Dara, who you sort of share the same name, kind of, but, one of you have the incorrect pronunciation. I'll let you figure out who's who. Who is this guy?
Well, I'm just learning a little bit about him. He was kind of a dark horse in the running, not a name that was flown around at all. And but he's originally from Iran. He came here, went to Brown, and then worked on Wall Street during the 90s. And he kind of got this reputation as this tough, hard ass.
All right.
Yeah. And
I think Uber could use a hard ass.
Yeah, they need someone.
They need a disciplinarian.
Crack the whip. Yeah. And then in 2005, he became CEO of Expedia, and he really helped grow the company, number of acquisitions. So seems like he's been a pretty good businessman on that front.
What's he going to be able to help Uber out on, though?
Well, he has his work cut out for him. Uber is facing several lawsuits, allegations of everything from, chaotic parties to sexual
that's the thing.
harassment.
It's like there's a whole cultural, sort of institutional problem that Uber has to deal with, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically that most of the folks at Uber don't think that Kalanick should have been ousted in the first place, right?
Right. Yeah, he had quite a following, and people there, I've heard from people who've worked there that a lot of employees try to emulate Travis Kalanick. He had this thing where he would pace a lot, and then everyone started pacing during meetings.
Okay.
And so it's going to be really interesting to see how a new leader will affect the company and its employees.
All right. Well, next up, we're talking about back to school season. Alfred, you wrote a piece about how hackers love to take advantage of new students going into universities.
Yeah, so a lot of universities, their IT department have a lot of work cut out for them, especially around the back to school season, because, about 1,500 to 2,000 students come on campus every year, mostly freshmen, and they all bring their laptops with them, and then the IT department has to basically manage and make sure that, there's no malware on those infecting their system. So there's a lot of work cut out into it. A lot of them, they use DNS management on their systems, which basically it manages the network, because they can't go to every student's new laptop and you need to get rid of this, you need to get rid of this.
Right.
They can't touch their laptops, but they can manage the network. So if you're a student and you have malware on your device and you try to log on the network, it's basically you're not going to be able to get on our Wi-Fi with your disgusting virus-filled computer. Just a lot of things like that. They also do think some universities like Carnegie Mellon have specific courses targeted towards cybersecurity. So you actually have to go to these classes and learn about how to avoid phishing attacks, why you need two-factor authentication, and things like that.
Right. It's interesting. All right. Lastly, Dara and Rich Nieva went to Angola for our latest road trip feature. This is a fascinating piece on the demining efforts. Talk a bit about the tech that, some of the tech and how that kind of got incorporated into the story.
Yeah, so we were basically embedded with this organization called the Halo Trust, and they are we heard about them through Google Earth. Google Earth is helping them map out landmines, and it's really, before that they were using old Portuguese colonial maps, and so it's a big help because they can take the GPS coordinates of what they think are landmines and then put them onto Google Earth and then lay that over, see what they need to clear.
And what was that like walking through a minefield? I'd be freaking out. I don't think my wife would even let me do this.
Yeah, I'm surprised. We were with a photographer, James, who has 2 kids and a wife, and she was not very happy.
No.
It was really scary.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way around it. You would be walking and there'd be a landmine literally, 1 foot away.
Wow.
And if you stepped on it, you would theoretically die or lose some body parts.
I was thinking as I was reading that story, I'm like, well, I just went to a phone launch, so those are really stressful. But no, look, for more of these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Roger Cheng.
I'm Alfred Ng.
I'm Dara Kerr.
Thanks for listening. That's terrifying.
I should probably turn my microphone on.
Yeah.
That's utterly terrifying.
I know.
I'm delayed here, and I'm like fumbling over my buttons, just thinking about what you went through in a minefield, a literal minefield.
Well, what's really crazy is the people who work taking out these landmines. I mean, they're there every day, digging up these explosives. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
It's very admirable work.
And well, the sad thing was this was like the last
Yeah,
day, right,
so we
that you
were there on the very last day in this area. It's the most densely mined landmine field in all of Africa.
Wow.
And one of the most on Earth. And they, landmines have, I think, in the NGO world have kind of gone out of vogue as far as funding.
Right.
So
Not enough celebrities trumpeting the cause.
Right. So, back in one of the reasons we went there is because Princess Diana had walked in these same minefields. And so, but, where there's no Princess Diana now doing that kind of work.
The insane thing to me was how relatively, up until recently, how relatively, low tech this, incredibly dangerous effort was. And, to go into something like that using, pen and paper, I don't leave my house, to navigate somewhere with pen and paper. To do something like that, using such low tech is insane to me.
Yeah, and it's still pretty low tech. I mean, they're using Google Maps. Some groups are trying different types of mechanisms to find the landmines, but really everyone says it's just boots on the ground. There's no silver bullet yet.
Which is scary. And I mean, the fact that this is their last day didn't mean that the mines were all cleared. There's still tons left, right?
Yeah, there's so many left, and it's unclear how many's left, but they're thinking at least that they know of 35,000.
Wow.
And that includes one minefield that's 30 kilometers long. I mean, it's insane. It's hard to even fathom.
Brian, do we have any questions?
Thank you for the cue. I was waiting for you. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the chat. First up, shout out to Arkaz, who is a longtime listener, first-time contributor from the UK.
Awesome.
Hey.
Welcome.
Enjoying your evening, we hope. We have a question from Satyam Das, who says, asking, how come Uber can work without a CEO until this point? So just, you understand how business works. I don't know how business works. How could a company like that stay afloat when the head honcho's gone?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, Roger, you might be better to answer this. And they still had their board of.
Yeah,
There was no interim CEO at this point.
No.
Which is kind of interesting because usually there is an interim. That's usually how businesses run without CEO. There's a temporary head honcho, and this was a little bit more unusual because was it run via the board almost?
Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
Which isn't normal.
Yeah,
Right.
but also for the last few weeks, wasn't Uber just not making any major decisions that would require a CEO to begin with in the first place?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. I mean,
They're kinda just treading
the
water.
only decision was choosing the CEO, really.
Yeah.
Well, the thing was, they are also, when the former CEO was asked to step down, they were in major searches for all sorts of heads of
Yeah,
departments.
that's right. Most of that executive
COO,
level had
yeah.
kind of left already.
CTO,
Yep.
yeah, just all the top.
Well, I mean, it kind of goes to show you, at least a company like Uber, it can kind of run itself for a while. I mean, it's because it's ultimately, it's based off of local drivers on the road. I mean, as long as you're not doing any huge strategic shifts or nothing really breaks down, the company can basically keep running on its own, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they don't need a CEO. That could be the new model. Just a CEO-less company.
Driverless cars and a CEO-less
Yes, a
company.
driverless company. That would be cool. No, I
Are
don't
you
know.
coining that right
all
here?
our decisions are made by AI.
Or Elon Musk. He'll have created the AI CEO to run all companies that are out there.
No way, he's anti-AI.
Yeah,
That's
now.
true. He's anti-AI.
Yeah.
He's gonna save the world from itself.
Do you see like an ousting though of like Kalanick loyalists?
I don't know.
That'd be a good question.
I mean,
Yeah.
they may, depending how things go, they may quit on their own rather than an ousting.
Yeah, especially
There's-
if from what you're saying is true. Like if he's like a more sort of hard ass, new CEO comes in. Like that's usually when there's a big wave of turnover. so-
CEO would let me stay up past 11.
Yeah, it's notorious for a hardworking workplace under the last CEO, under
Right.
Kalanick.
Right.
Long hours. So, but yeah, who knows? I mean, there's definitely people in the company who wanted change, but there is a huge cohort of loyalists.
Yep.
So before we move on, we want to cheers to our loyalists, Michael Brown, Imagine Sagi,
Hey!
Danny Green. Good
Hey,
morning,
guys.
guys. Michael
Hello.
Brown's asking, what are your thoughts on this new CEO? You kind of brushed on this earlier. You said he's kind of a hard ass, right?
Yeah.
Did you meet him?
No,
You didn't yet. Okay.
no. Actually, and I personally, I don't know that much about him. I know
Not a lot of people
just-
know. Yeah. He's a
from-
complete surprise pick.
Yeah. And I haven't written much about Expedia. And so I will know more at the end of the day.
I know Expedia is one of those companies. I mean, it's a tech company, but it's not one of those tech companies we write about a lot. I feel like I use it fairly frequently, actually. But
Yeah.
What is Expedia? Is it like a Wikipedia thing?
It's like
Oh,
a travel
shut
loss.
up. Shut up, dude.
Alfred.
Stop being
Don't-
such a millennial.
Wait a minute.
I actually have never
Expedia's
used
not
Expedia though.
outdated at all. It's still quite
No,
functional.
he's
Yeah.
making a
I'm
joke.
saying I've never used Expedia.
Really?
No.
I use Expedia.
I don't
still.
travel that much either though.
Yeah.
That
No,
might
that's
be
I
true.
bounce back and forth between it and kayak for a lot of
Yeah.
the same reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But wait,
Whoever's, you know.
so what is it like? Compare like flight rates and then.
Wait, are
you actually-
I know it's a travel website.
Yes.
yeah,
So
okay.
it's flights,
What-
hotels, rental cars. It's basically any kind. It's a travel site that does
But
comparison.
wouldn't you
pricing.
just go and like Google like your flight prices?
And you'd probably land
No.
on an
Yeah,
Expedia
that-
result.
That's probably
Probably.
true.
Yeah.
What do you
And they-
use for
Google
travel?
has
He
like
doesn't-
automated
you
results
just
stuff.
yeah, okay.
But some of
Or
that
I go straight to the airline.
although
I go to like
that stuff
JetBlue,
is-
or I go to like.
Well, that's the thing. If you want to compare JetBlue with Delta with United,
Okay.
or
And
get the
whatever,
cheaper
and get the
price
cheaper
or
price,
different
you
schedule.
Are
probably
they all
want-
relatively the same though?
No.
Oh,
No, they changed.
I'm
a
going to
lot.
give you
Wow.
a lesson.
This
in
shows how much I
buying
travel.
Airplane tickets.
No, wait, you're saying you don't still go to a travel agent on the corner? Apologies to people who actually are employed as travel agents. You do good jobs, but it's hard to not make that joke.
2017.
We have a question from Jacob Kraft in the chat. It says, do you guys think it's too late for Uber to give in to all the controversy?
What do you mean by give in?
Yeah.
I'm
Like-
not really
like just-
sure.
like just give up? Could you
Jacob,
clarify?
Yeah, Jacob, could you clarify for us
No,
exactly?
no. He's saying given all the controversy.
I'm sorry. I read it wrong.
sorry.
Do you think it's too late for
Hard to read.
Uber, given all of that controversy?
Well,
I see. I'm an idiot.
I
I
mean-
can't read today, apparently.
That's a really good question because there is so much controversy. I mean, there's a lot of backpedaling and a lot of smoothing over things that the CEO is going to have to do.
But I mean, if they could exist without the CEO for so long, does that really kind of leave them as self-sustaining?
Yeah, I don't
I-
think people care about
Yeah,
the controversy.
that's the thing.
I think that's a very
Really?
like tech
Yes.
insulated thing.
I think
People
it's
still
totally a
use
Silicon Valley
People still
thing.
eat at Chick-fil-A despite their controversies, and like Under Armour back when they were
I mean,
still.
most people I talk to, either the drivers or just customers, are like they just want things. They don't want something that works. So, like I had this issue. I was getting picked up from JFK this past weekend. I used Lyft initially. Driver like couldn't find me or whatever, and I just ended up switching back to Uber because it worked. And ultimately, like I don't necessarily feel great about using Uber, but like if my alternative service isn't going to work as well, I'm gonna just use the one that works,
Yeah.
regardless of the controversy, right?
And that's what it kind of comes down to. Like, as a company, it's not represented just by Colin. It's a number of people who work hard and have done a good job, right?
Yeah.
I feel like there are just some things that you can't boycott, and like I haven't used Uber since their controversies and used Lyft, but I know there's a lot of people that like Uber's kind of like their only option or something.
Yeah, and
True.
every time I talk to a driver, at least here in New York, they're like
They work for
Uber-
both.
They work for
Yeah.
both, but they're like Uber all the way. They much
Really?
prefer Uber. Yeah.
Well, I haven't talked to any drivers in New York, but everywhere else, every driver's likes Lyft way more.
Interesting.
They're treated better by the company.
Yeah.
Well, no,
they make better
I hear
money.
that, but I also hear that they get more business with Uber than with Lyft.
Yeah.
And I think
yeah.
that kind of reflects as part of the location as well. Like coming down to New York is a fairly easy city to
And
navigate,
New
and if
York's-
the app itself really functions better, and I think arguably on a more objective level, the Uber app functions better than the Lyft app.
That's what people
Not
say.
saying
Yeah.
one versus the other as a service functioning, just simply as an application. Maybe that's why they make more money off Ubers, because they yield better
Well, I mean,
results.
I also think it's
just due to the
it's-
algorithm.
It's been around longer.
Mm-hmm.
It's more established. There are more people using it. I think in general that's
That
why.
probably factors
They also
into why
use
the
like
app
a
is
gray
better.
ball
Yeah.
kind of thing
Oh, right.
to get rides
Right.
from Lyft.
Well, they've been hyper competitive too
Yeah.
in trying to squash their competitors.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's true. My grandparents would have heard of Uber and not Lyft probably. So
It's become kind of a household
And
name.
Yeah.
do you think your grandparents
than
would
I
know
would've
about
thought.
the controversies with it? Also, like the lobbying that they did and the way that they treat the
From
homeless in San
me.
Francisco. But I'm saying, like, the average person like doesn't know all the shady things
Yeah,
that they do.
Yeah.
They
it's
just
true.
know that it's really cheap. They don't know the like people that
But
they
you-
stepped
I mean,
on to get there.
You brought
Yeah.
up a good point about Chick-fil-A, right? Like people, I mean, it's hugely successful in New York, and regardless of their stance on
yeah,
you know,
Yeah,
their
it's
personal
crazy.
stances. So.
Speaking of stances, Chick-fil-A is extraordinarily overrated.
I've never had it.
That's fine. You know what?
It's just as fine as any other fast food fried chicken. I
Yeah.
don't know if it succeeds.
I will
in
say
a-
this: I've only actually had it twice, not here in New York. Like once at an airport, and I ate the sandwich, and I was like, "All right, that's whatever."
It's
and then,
fine,
no,
it's
but I
good.
walked
Fried-
away. Like
fried chicken is always
but
good.
5 minutes later, I was like, "Kind of want another one." Like it's weird. I was just sort of like, "It's okay." 5 minutes later, I'm like, "Sure, back now."
All right, we should probably knock out another question or two before we call it a day. Michael
Yeah.
Brown asks, do you think driverless cars / service is the only end game for Uber? What else can they do?
I think it should be, because if they don't end up at it, Lyft will, or all these other companies
Someone
will,
Google
and
will.
they're going to
Yeah.
get shut out.
Yeah.
it's true.
Although no, I think the actual true end game is the self-driving planes that fly around. hover
Yeah,
around.
I mean Uber's working on that too.
Yeah, I remember the patent for that.
Oh,
Like,
silly.
it like lifts off from
Well,
the
yeah.
top of a
Wait,
parking lot.
it was in Dubai, right? Like where they said
Yeah,
they're gonna announce the testing
and
for it.
Dallas.
And was it Travis
Oh, really?
Kalanick
Yeah.
that made the great statement about, like, it's better because it's essentially like a dictatorship there, and you can make changes faster.
Oh God.
I'm paraphrasing it, but it was about that. It was
Yeah.
basically like, we don't have to deal with this government red tape because it's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
dictatorship
yeah.
there. So
Yeah, they launched in there and Dallas at the same time, but Dallas is it's
Not a
basically
dictatorship.
dictatorship. No, I don't. No, but they're very friendly to tech in Dallas.
Yeah, that's
so,
true. Yeah.
And there's a big airline. It's a airline hub
Is
because
that
they need.
actually happening? Like,
Yeah, they had
Oh.
a big conference. I mean, who knows? It's a lot of smoke and mirrors in my
Yeah,
opinion,
yeah.
but basically they just look like little helicopters.
Yep.
I'm a fan. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's adorable.
Wasn't
Yeah.
there that Kitty Hawk thing from
Yeah.
Larry Page had funded?
Oh, the dirigible.
Yeah, it was like
The
a
airship?
drone that you could ride,
Yeah.
except I'm like no state would ever approve that, like logistically.
No.
No, there's a lot of issues.
Oh,
But
the huge manatee.
self-driving cars, that's going to be a hard pivot because Uber its business is built on drivers.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, drivers are also what is making it not profitable, because if it didn't have drivers, then it could keep all of that money. But yeah, I think it's going to be a rough road. And actually, all these companies keep saying 2020, they're going to be out and about. I'm not as
Yeah, I mean there'll probably be like 3 or 4 of them out and about.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll be seeing it as like traffic.
Well, I mean, I think you're gonna
end-to-end.
start seeing them in levels, right? Like there's like grades, like level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
Yeah,
in terms
yeah,
of
like the
autonomous
Tesla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like they'll be kind of like half measures, but you're not
Yeah.
gonna see a completely driverless car for a long
I mean,
time.
that rollout in San Francisco was a fiasco.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
because they were jerks about it.
But then
Like, forget the city, we're just gonna do it anyway.
but the
That's a great
cars, there was
strategy.
like so many incidents just in the first couple of hours.
Yeah.
And the part that they didn't get permission.
We got to wrap it up soon, but I just want to point out a comment from the Chill One who backs up the validation of how Uber is a little more widespread. Says that Uber is in Ghana, Lyft isn't. for example. Uber is just going harder. I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
And then as a sidebar, I like Josh's comment. Uber and Lyft is like Google and Bing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Burn.
Ouch.
I don't know about that. I mean, Bing's really irrelevant. I mean,
Also, Bing came like way later than Google did. I think
Yeah.
Uber and Lyft kind of started around the same time.
Was it? I thought Lyft was a little
Lyft
later
was
too.
later.
A teeny bit later, but Lyft started the idea of carpooling.
yeah, but
first.
Bing
And
was
then-
like Bing was years later.
Yeah,
yeah.
relatively, Lyft was closer to Uber.
All right,
And-
we do have to wrap things up.
We
because I
do.
gotta run.
Sorry.
All right, sorry guys.
You and your stupid meetings trying to keep the company going.
I know. I have a radio hit like in 10 seconds. So, anyways, if you liked anything you saw or heard here, check us out on CNET. Our podcast is also available on iTunes,
iTunes.
TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, FeedBurner, and Google Play Music. Sorry, I'm in a rush. Gotta go.
also on CNET.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.